Hi, good morning and good afternoon for those folks that are across the country here. This is going to be our first live stream in 2019. So this webinar is brought to you by Horizons. For those of you who might not know me yet, I'm Tiffany Lam, your host for today. So I'm just going to, let's just tidy up some things here for 1 minute, and I think we'll get going once we have some more folks along here. And I'm just going to do one quick check to make sure everything's ready to go. We are recording, and also we also will be posting this video up on our YouTube channel after. So if you haven't looked into it before, we're certainly on YouTube at Horizon Solutions. Be sure to subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Okay, with that said, I believe all the audio is ready to go. So we'll get started. All right, so again, I just want to mention this is the first webinar in 2019 brought to you by Horizons. And basically what we want to preface is that this is a webinar targeted to those who already have the Archibus software. So this is made especially for you guys. It's to showcase, first of all, what's new, and especially for you guys, some of you are always wanting to keep up to date with what kind of new changes are out there. There's actually so much within version 24 that we jam-packed that into this hour. We actually aren't going to cover every little detail, but I'm going to do my best and present to you guys what's great about 24 and also help you make kind of push you towards making that decision whether or not you need the upgrade. So basically, this is definitely for our end users. But if you are new to Archibus, be sure to look at our other videos on YouTube. We do have one that's on a general overview of Archibus itself. So to quickly preface, Archibus is known as the #1 provider for the total infrastructure and facilities management softwares. So when you make statements like that, we also want to make sure why we're telling you that. First off, we do have more than 8 million users around the globe. And second, you don't have to listen to me say that. There's also other consultants that go and specifically compare very much like products in that world of integrated workplace management systems. So these are the kind of solutions that deal with facilities, properties, space, assets, and then basically have that all in one system so you can have your work orders, any kind of space request, and any kind of planning with your assets over time from the life cycle of from getting the asset to the disposal of them. That is kind of the idea of what all these systems here are being compared to by these kind of consultants that do these quadrants. And they basically associate Archibus as a leader, and it's constantly being put into that leader tier, even in the Verdantics and Gartner's Magic Quadrant and Verdantics Green Quadrant. So that means all those categories that they're basically evaluating for, say, the database, say, security, say, functionality, that sort of thing, Archibus is hitting those top marks. Also, here's today's agenda. So we started with a very, very light introduction. So I do need to give a very brief introduction of who Horizon is, and then quite promptly we'll just go straight into the demo. So it's going to have this kind of a flow, as you can see here in the blue band. As I mentioned, this video is going to be on our YouTube stream as well afterwards. So if you wanted to revisit sections, you'll know where to find what you need to go back to visit. And then we do want to give some really light closing remarks. So with that, let's get rolling. So for us, I'm with Horizons. And Horizon, we're a third-party reseller of the renowned Archibus IWMS product. So think of us as the people side of the equation. So we're there to provide services across North America from coast to coast. And these are just kind of a quick sample of our listed services. And one of our key philosophies here is that we also love to enable our clients to have the ability to be independent. So we provide all these services. We especially provide training so that our clients also can take on these roles. And where they might be wanting to get some more additional help in is where we definitely will be there to fill in the gaps, provide that kind of industry best practice approach for all the IWMS suites. And these are things that we're experiencing, giving you guys a helping hand. So that's pretty much it for that introduction. So it's time for the demo portion. And I'm just going to shut off the camera so that we get the best look and feel for the product itself. All right, so here is what you might see here is version 24. We're off to a fresh start. You may notice some new types of metrics on our homepage. So let me introduce these to you guys. First, there's the building metrics. So your key locations, you can certainly add them to your homepage, as well as show any of those top metrics associated. So you might have things like statistics, such as your capacity and headcount, that you wanted to basically be able to identify right away at the location level. And then there's the new gauge style kind of metric. So you get to see a full performance and trending of your entire portfolio. In this case, this arrow is indicating that the higher this value is, it's not that good for us in our portfolio. So that's just one of the things that the Archibus is now starting more and more to show you more of the business analytics part of the things. And without all these metrics, you certainly have ability to drill down. So for some of you, you might have a list of buildings, locations you might want to drill down by your departments. I'll just go by building location. So what you have here is if your portfolio is the size of a globe, then you're going to get a map view of all your locations across the globe. And if your portfolio is in several sites and multi-locations, then you'll have a map view that's going to be reflective of this data. So the other thing that's very new to Archibus is the introduction of this essentials and professional tier. So actually, I'm going to switch over to this view here quickly here. So there is a few brackets here within Archibus. We actually can't cover all these 4 new functional areas today, but basically think of them as tiers. They basically deal with the operations and facilities management. So they provide very quick interfaces, allow you to do some very quick adaptation and give a better end user experience for those requesting any kind of operational and kind of workplace-based services. But because today is about a what's new, I'm just going to say we're going to focus a little bit on the essentials section. So I'm so excited to show you guys this section here because it's a combination for those modern requirements of space management. So traditionally, Archibus would have split up the applications of reservations, workplaces, assets, and space. And now you have these kind of grouped together suites that simplifies that process and really lets you start off just using that one suite to get rolling off the ground there. So you have things such as being able to start defining your spaces, your employee and organizational information, to setting up your reservable rooms and what kind of bookable desks you have, and your assets. And then also to make simple requests. So let's go ahead and show you what that self-service homepage would look like. So this is a simpler screen for those end users. These are folks that are coming in. They just want to know, well, where are my tickets and what's the status behind them? Also, what kind of meeting reservations do I have for today, and what kind of desk bookings do I have, and where do I need to go? And you can also certainly request things like, I want to request a quick move, I want to book a meeting space, book a desk, or just make a request for some help. So with that said, in our demo, let's go ahead and book a meeting. So first off, we have the ability to see our floors that are bookable. And if we look here, basically what happens is that you might have certain buildings where you might have bookable spaces. You can certainly specify any reoccurrence patterns. And actually, let's go ahead and find a building location where we can certainly figure out which is a good place to hold our meeting. And then basically any of these spaces that are available. So actually, I'm just going to go back and let's see if we can find another location that we can certainly go use that. Oh, here we go. So I guess just wanted to find the right floor that had some data to it. So this one here, that's the one thing about presenting live is you don't know what you're going to find. So one of the things here is we can search by the floor, the list of our rooms and see which rooms are available. We can also specify any requirements such as our seats and amenities that we need for today. Coffee machines, Wi-Fi, making sure we have a whiteboard, that sort of thing. And we can also switch to a floor plan view. So that allows me to find out, for example, it's the same tool where I can still click on the rooms. I can go ahead and book it, confirm what I'm getting when I book this particular room, set any reoccurrence pattern. For example, if I only need to book this meeting once, then I just need to go ahead and start saying, well, when do I need this meeting to? And we go next, give our meeting a name. Specify our attendee list, and then also the details about who was organizing this meeting, whether or not we also wanted to keep it private, yes or no. And you can certainly invite your attendees. So you'll be able to do a search for visitors and employees within your organization. So we'll go ahead and type in a word. And if there's no Judy's, then we're going to go look for John's because that's a very common name. And bringing these folks in, we'll be able to go next. Last confirmation will let us know what we're booking. And as you notice, it's a very user-driven approach. So this is definitely meant for the users that are just lightly using the system and they want a user-friendly vibe to using the system. They also send out emails so you know that the space has been booked. And if you're an attendee as well, you're also going to get email notice about that. So coming back in our main, here's our new meeting. And this particular screen, the functionality here within Archibus is that it is a portal. So it is a URL-based link. That means that I can also access this through the mobile device there. And that's actually what we're going to do. Basically, the idea there is that new homepage there is going to be very web responsive. So if you use different devices that might have things such as a landscape view or whatnot, we'll be able to resize accordingly. So just momentarily from now, I'm just going to get ready our demo for our mobile for you guys. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to attach this to my phone here for 1 second, and we're ready. Okay, so on my phone, all our phones come with barcode readers and scanner functionality. So we'll be able to just show you, we're going to just take our camera. You can be in front of a printer, and you can have QR codes that you print off of Archibus for your assets, your rooms or your equipment, and then basically that pops up the same form to ask for requests. So right here, we've got your list of all your requests you've asked for. And also you have the ability to create a brand new request. So it already knows the equipment information. We can go ahead and describe the problem. Like printer is jammed, will not print. and it already knows the location. So we could have typed that in, by the way. I just used the microphone. And we'll go and take a photo of the problem. You can also add additional photos or add some specific location notes. And once you're ready, you can hit send. And we got another service request created. And now we're just going to come back and bring us back to the Archibus Web Central momentarily here. All right, so you should now start seeing the Archibus Web Central. And one thing new here with the Essentials Suite is all those tickets, they actually roll into a new section called the Service Console. So this is a unified version of a workplace service ticket. Now, this isn't a full-blown building ops kind of console. This is more of a service-based kind of console. And what the difference here is that, first off, I can certainly do a show and let me see my reservations, let me see any kind of bookings for desk show up here as well. So now you've got a grouping of incoming tickets coming from the users that are, first off, anything from problems with their request to even reservations, and you'll see all those details in one big, powerful view. So a nice, exciting thing here is Archibus is also bringing on the new grid style 3.0. So what this means is that on the web, we're able to do things like drag and drop the columns and basically add new columns as we need to as well by dragging this information. So one thing I might need to know and see is a location kind of column chooser or column that I can pick from this list here. And then each of these particular requests, if I go into one about kind of a work request or a service request, you get kind of snippets of what you would have seen traditionally in the building operations, but actually a much more simplified version because you just want to be able to quickly assign this to someone to get the work done, so a craftsperson, and also to associate any cost to it. So that's kind of the idea there. And then instead, if you went and opened up one for, say, reservations, then the screen is going to reflect based on the reservations data. So very powerful console here for you to get everything you need to see on one screen. And you can make additional changes here as well if you're one of the admins overseeing this information. Another thing here for the admins is that each of these particular tickets that come in, they have quick buttons where they can quickly make comments, assign, approve, and basically push these tickets to completion. That also means you have ability to do things like multi-select and then do some quick approving, assigning, basically finish up these tickets. So we actually are just going to show this much today for the light teaser of version 24's Essentials piece. But we do want to spend and take another time with a new webinar that we're going to have upcoming next month. That's actually going to be about the Essentials and Professional tiers because they actually have their own distinct interface and functionalities. So we want to be able to make sure we highlight that to everyone that might be new to it. So when that new content comes out, and that I believe we should be having emails, invitations out for that soon, if not already. So be sure to keep involved and up to date on it. So with that said, we're just going to continue with the more product side of things of what's new. So the next thing here we want to showcase, we already showcased the Essentials. So now we're going to quickly go over what's new in the space management and planning world. And actually what the Archibus has done here now is that in 24, they actually started grouping space management and move management into one domain. So now what we're going to showcase is the new Move console. So I'm excited. Basically, this particular console now is here to structure all the data about your moves in one screen. So that means you certainly are going to see the groupings by their current status. And as you go into the individual kind of groups, you might notice that there's the group moves and the individual moves now in one screen. So that's very good for us to basically get to where we need to be. And also we have some very powerful filters for us to find our particular moves as we need to. If we go and quickly look at what a group, I guess an individual move would look like, for example. So this is now refreshing the data based on what an individual move would have asked for. And you still have the same buttons that you would need to do for individual moves versus the group moves. But if we go into a group move, I'm going to show you something even newer here. So in group moves, first off, you might notice again, the screen's reflective based on the group move. This time I didn't move any employees with my move. So traditionally with Archibus is that you're moving folks in, you're giving them permanent locations as part of the move. But we're aware that there's a lot of digital, I guess, more of a, what they call shared spaces these days. So Archibus also allows you to move teams. So you can certainly add a new team into this move here. Select the team in your list. And then as part of that whole move project, you'll get those requested start move and end date moves for those items there. So if we go inside the move, you're going to now start seeing that your team is going to be comprised of employees that could be there temporarily in that space, and also rooms that could be temporarily as being a part of that space as well. So you can certainly go ahead and find any additional employees to include. And then that will indicate that due to our move, we're going to impact all our seat ratios and actual targets for this particular team space. Next, we also can add rooms to our teams. So because of this move project, we're going to go ahead and add a new room here. And that would mean that once we go ahead and complete this move, then all this team information is going to be updated within our system. So another thing here is I'm going to showcase the move scenarios, and some of you guys might be familiar with it already. But you have the ability to, one, create multiple scenarios, create as many as you need, even copy an existing one. So I'm going to create a scenario 2 here. But let's go into scenario 1 and just show you what that's about. One of the things we want to point out with version 24, especially all the floor plans and views like that have moved to HTML5. So what that means is that you'll be able to basically have faster loading floor plans, and it doesn't need Flash. And also you'll be able to run highlights across different platform, requirements. In this case, we're going to include the concept of teams with us. So traditionally here, we would have had a list of employees we're supposed to move permanently into the locations. This time we're dealing with the team. So we're just simply saying we're going to give more spaces to a team. In this case, once I assign, I now see in highlights what kind of spaces in this case are vacant. So I can bring that and put that as part of my team. And we'll go ahead and make that change. So now my team's now going to start looking closer to that. And also with the HTML5, the great thing is that you'll be able to deal with a lot of markups. So if you wanted to pass notes on to someone else who you might not get in touch with, and you wanted to make sure they know any kind of highlights and lines that they want to be aware of on the drawing level, not necessarily fixing or changing the actual CAD drawing, but more so changing the drawing that's on the Archibus side on the web so that you can share details of others. So I can certainly show what kind of markups were made in the past here. So that will give me a list here of any kind of markup. I can see that someone left me a note to, for example, not do anything in this particular space. And I can certainly save my own highlight particular notes as well. You'll also be able to choose from available layouts. So let's go ahead and just show you what kind of layouts are available here. So one of the things here, this is for a different floor plan. So the idea here is that if you're tracking things like historical floor plans, you'll be able to, first off, not only see and work with a scenario floor plan that is based on the live layout, but you'll also be able to load historical plans or even futuristic plans and then just kind of see the comparison between them, especially if there's a change of walls for you to do that. So the ones in the red are the ones that are basically there for that purpose. So I'm just going to quickly show you what that might look like. This is for a different floor plan, not necessarily the one we're working with, but we're certainly able to bring that in. And you might have noticed there was a slight change in kind of the design or the layouts right there. So just going to do one quick flip back to it. So especially if you're dealing with the historical look and feel of things and you just want to pull up that information, you'll certainly be able to do that. Now, the next piece here, I just want to quickly summarize this particular console because you can go into the individual projects and the move projects and make an update to change their status, but you certainly have the ability to do the multiple selects and quickly route these particular projects so that they can be closer and quickly pushed to being issued and completed. So this isn't so much of a I want this kind of console. This is more of a I need this console for those who deal with a lot of moves as changes. So let's come back on our particular homepage. I want to showcase another section here, which is our view building performance analysis. So before I exactly show you what's different there, I want to come back and just describe some quick information here. First, actually, I'm just going to go and show you we do have the ability to show BOMA A and BOMA B methods. So this is just a sample that you'd set which version you use for your system. In this case, in the BOMA B method, space is going to start looking more so like this due to the calculation. Whereas if we actually did the boundaries and they might have been different due to the calculations caused by BOMA. So in our view building performance piece here, we certainly have the ability to find that building. And in this case, now I've switched it to BOMA A for our demo. So here we're able to now see that there is even though we have a certain boundary area, BOMA A calculates space a little differently. So now we'll have a different kind of rentable area due to BOMA. Another piece here that's new with version 24 is that it gives you additional options, recognizing that everyone has different needs of allocation and chargeback requirements. So this is going to be a quick walkthrough that this is traditionally what Archibus has kind of done, is that you kind of allocate spaces based on occupancy. So if you look at a space here, this is a concept of a room where apartment A is on one side and apartment B is on the other. And apartment A only has one employee versus the other one. So ultimately here, when you do a kind of a roll up, it may seem that department B is going to take up more of the space. So that's one traditional setting that you would use to calculate your space usage. But the new option here is that you can certainly say, well, I want it to just split based on department. So you can have as many employees on one side versus the other side, but I still want them to split based on the department instead. So as a result, when you look at your kind of reports that deal with calculations of chargebacks and allocations, that's going to be reflected based on your setting here. So the next thing here, this is an exciting feature here. We're going to talk about the whole new Archibus extensions for lease accounting. Now, this piece here is a separate license extension, but the idea here is it's going to give you the ability to access all your lease classifications that you're going to start setting according to the standards. So this might be kind of new for some folks hearing this for the first time, but for some of you here, especially in Canada, you're already doing basically an IFRS kind of lease accounting detail here. So with Archibus, it's going to make that process even simpler. So what that means is all these standards, they're setting up rules and guidelines for recognition and how you measure and how you present and disclose your leases in general. So there is two standards. One is the International Financial Reporting Standard, so IFRS, and they call, the current one is now IFRS 16. That's effective right now as of January 2019. And of course, with between public and private entities, there is a little bit of a difference. For example, the other one there's another one called the Accounting Standards Codification Topic 842. And that one there also can be, instead of the January 2019 timeline, non-public entities can start adopting it in December 2019. So the difference here is that IFRS 16 is used across the globe, and then ASC 842 is used within the states. So with that said, let's quickly show you the piece here that's related to it. So there, with the extension, it adds on additional tasks here that is related to those standards. So we're not going to go through every one of them, but first, what I do want to bring us back to is a very familiar looking field. So this console is used within lease management, and most of us have seen this. So the only thing that's new here is that you might notice there's now a reference to the standards. So I can certainly look at the standards, and basically there's a process that goes behind them. First off, when you start your Archibus and you start adding in this license, first off, all your leases are unclassified. So you want to go through them and basically start classifying and updating them according to the standards in practice. So then you'll start getting it pending. Someone will go and approve it, so it'll go under approved. And then over time, as things change with your lease, you're going to need to reevaluate things on a yearly or monthly basis. So that's kind of what those statuses are here for you to find those kind of leases very quickly here. So otherwise, when you go into your traditional lease here, we have the ability to certainly go ahead and edit the lease abstract. And you're going to notice two new things. One is a button for your lease classification wizard. So this is one way to get to that classification from the lease console. Afterwards, we're going to show you a screen dedicated to just classifying leases. After, there's some quick details for you to see that, first off, this lease here has never been, this one here has been pending. So that's why some of this information has been highlighting that information. And actually, I'm just going to go back and find one more other lease that actually has nothing done to it. So it's never been classified. So in this case now, when I look at the lease classification, you can see nothing's been done to it. So we're going to go ahead and start the wizard. But before we do, I just want to point out that this lease here will have things already in place here, because with our leases, we would have said that there's a start date and end date and move-in date. And also we would have specified cost to it. So these are things you're already traditionally tracking in Archibus, as well as your clauses or options to renew or options to buy, and then a list of all your communication logs and details there. So with that said, let's quickly jump into the classification wizard that will help us guide us through updating the rest of this lease so it meets the proper standards. First, it's going to ask you, well, are you following the ASC 842 or are you going IFRS 16? So for our demo today, I want to quickly just show you what happens if I pick either or. Following the 842 method, first off, you might notice the form is going to pops up, and it's actually going to ask you questions related to that standard. However, once I switched over to the IFRS 16 version, the questions now here, there's fewer questions because the standards themselves, they're a little different. There's a lot of things that are very similar about them, but they will have their own respective points and data points and their own requirements. So the nice thing here is we're going to show you how we're preparing the leases for you very quickly here. Another thing here is when you're dealing with IFRS 16, there's actually two methods. There's the full retrospective, and then there's the modified approach. So depending on the setting you choose, the forms here again are going to behave differently. So we're just going to go ahead and say we're using a full retrospective approach. There's also additional settings in the background there for you to set for to speed up this process within that what I'm doing here today. So another thing here, as in terms of the start dates and things like that, that's actually passed over from my lease start and end dates. And then later I classify here is no matter what you do, you have to identify whether it's going to be a operating or your finance lease, because you're going to have to start doing some disclosures and some expense recognitions for your leases. So if I go ahead, I'll just pick a finance in this case. So that now will then also carry over the lease end date. Between the start and end date, it would have figured out how much periods and terms there were. And that in turn equals years. And then because we had costs associated to our lease, it already knew that and figured that out. So you can also continue onwards. And then starts asking additional questions. Is this less than the 12-month lease? And then if you had capitalization thresholds. So basically there's some additional behaviors that happen in the back there depending on the choices we make here. And remember, our lease in this particular example has options. So that's already gone ahead and let us know our step one is done. As part of this classification, it's going to go and calculate things such as your amortization schedule. It's also going to calculate your liability and your expenses, as well as your right of use for your asset. So those are all things that are required as part of those standards for you to capture. So as you can see here, Archibus is doing that work for you. So you're not trying to figure this out on Excel on your own. So what this is now I also have a means to further confirm some of these details in case I want to change the way that the calculations happening in the back there. So as part of my default settings, I can certainly set in a borrowing rate, or I can increment it if this is a special particular case. Archibus would have already tracked the age of my asset and so forth. So we're also going to be able to see the initial, all those calculations based on that kind of Archibus data, and as well as fair market value that we can add into the details there. Because we had calculated a schedule, I just want to show you, you can certainly pull up that list there. So the list here is based on each individual period for how much lease, the right of use, the liabilities and interest, and then basically how much is being expensed and how much is ending in the balance. So over time, you'll be able to also have the opportunity to basically bring this to a financial software that's your holder for all the information. So eventually within 2024, due to the current rate, we're having a lease liability balance that's balanced out. You'll also have the ability to do things such as refer to subledgers if you're also trying to push this information out of Archibus into your finance system, and also compare that information about the expenses. So right now, here's a line view for me to see my operational and the finance kind of expenses and how much cash payments I was getting. We can view that in a line view or a column view. And the great thing about these HTML5 based reports is I can certainly export them very quickly in various formats as I need to, it's PDF or picture kind of thing like that. And once you're ready, you can go ahead and get step 2 done. In the final step, you have final confirmation, so you can basically change these details for whether we're including a renewals, right of use options, if you're doing an automatic transfer or any options to buy. So if I have any options to buy here, that will start popping up here on this list. I can certainly add a new one. So this will just be an option that is an option to buy, or whether if I pick the other one, which would have been an option to transfer, then that's what these functionalities do. So I can track that information within Archibus, and then further have Archibus figure out whether we're also saying yes or no to these. And once we're done, it finalizes the details based on all the factors we've identified so far for the right of use, and then we can submit this for approval as well. So I'll just go ahead and submit that. Now, we also have the classification wizard, which I mentioned was a different way for you to get to the same classification functionality. So now this wizard is just focused on letting you quickly update and view the details about everything that you've classified or pending. So if I go ahead and just show me what's everything that's pending, I can see that. And versus things that are approved, let's go ahead and show that. So that pulls up that list there. And also, as I scroll to the right here, you can also see the quick details of the items that have been asked during the wizard. So I can get a quick glance of what all my values were. Let's go ahead and go into one that's been approved. And again, this is just letting you know that you have the ability to resubmit for evaluation, and then basically continue that approval, additional approvals as you change this, the steps in the wizard and your questions. So another thing here is that you do have audit logging. So as I pull this up, you can see that at one point it was pending, eventually it was approved, who did it, what are the dates, and then what were the values that have changed since then. So every one of these forms here, what you might see here is that there might have been changes to the data. So back then it was a yes, now it's a no, and get that information there. Now moving on, I just want to point out, there are some other sections we're going to skip for today, because I just want to point out that the idea here within Archibus is that what we're seeing is a phase 1 release of this lease accounting piece here. It's more of an opportunity for us to get all our leases up to standard, get those calculations. Furthermore, Archibus has a dedicated roadmap to further provide more reports for the lease accounting. So as we start having more reports and more functionality, we'll be sure to provide future webinars on it. So stay tuned with us and we'll be sure to keep you up to date. So this is one example of what the qualitative disclosure report would look like. So this is just pointing out all the lease cash flows between operating and expense and what kind of maturity is happening over time there. So we're going to now do a quick show and tell of what's new with the whole next section here, which is related to asset management. So one of the things here we want to point out is you're going to start being able to do multiple asset classifications. Traditionally, what happens is that you had a primary classification, and now with Archibus, you'll have the ability to have multiple items. So you'll have an asset because of the way you work with different consultants that do things from evaluating the condition of your assets to the way you track your assets, even in Revit drawings and such, that carry a lot of classifications identified by the architect. You can bring those all into Archibus now and have that being one consistent. When you look at one asset, you can have multiple classifications associated. So let's go ahead and show you what, when you go into any of those asset lifecycle screens here that show you all your assets, we certainly have the ability to pull up in your filter-driven approach, pull up all those classifications. So traditionally, you might have had one primary. In this case, this is master format. But I can certainly switch and say, well, let's actually go to Omni class, for example, and I might have some different items there and different drill downs. So before I go ahead and select that, I'm actually going to show you one more, which is Uniformat 2, which is pretty common here in Canada with us, as well as Omni class. But we'll be able to basically deal with multiple classification requirements as we need to. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and we can certainly go and type and search for a particular one. So I'm going to use the HVAC generating, the HVAC systems, bring that one over. We'll run a search. And now we've restricted to everything that is following that particular classification. Oh, wait, there's a bit more. So if I go ahead and open up one of my assets, what you're going to see is originally the classification code that we used was our primary. So it was master format. But because we had additional data, maybe due to consultants that were helping us check the condition of our assets, and maybe from our Revit drawings, for example, we might have additional classifications. We can now have multiple classifications tied to one asset. And as you notice, I had searched based on my Uniformat 2 classification instead. You'll also be able to do that navigation through an Explorer style view. So if I wanted to basically use a different kind of format, then I can do that and use, for example, master format to run these kind of different searches. So that also means that when we go into different reports, such as our optimization report, this is a very popular report here that allows us to do a lot of financial analysis and quick statistics about our assets. But I can certainly go into the classifications, and if I had things under a certain type, then I'll certainly be able to run those kind of searches on those assets. And anything that falls under there, in this case, we'll go ahead and just clear that and find out where we're having other assets. But as we drill down and have assets properly associated to the right levels, we'll be able to run those kind of searches with them as well. So then you'll be able to, again, at the individual level, be able to find out what kind of assets fell in that range, what were their overall conditions of them, by good, fair, poor, and bad, and what the overall status of these assets were. Followed by any of the high-level assets, you can certainly bring that into your financial analysis piece where you can have various metrics report against them. And also, there's a bit of an update to this exception report. So if you're new to this section, what this is a way for you to very quickly start updating all your assets so you can meet certain standardization levels, standards such as ISO 55000, because what that needs, what some of the requirements there is that you're supposed to have a lot of your data corrected. So if you had any assets, for example, that was missing data or incorrect data, you can do a search for that. So any assets that might have been without, for example, a condition, or they didn't have a classification, we can do that search. Find me all those assets that are missing that kind of data, and then I can do some quick updates to make sure all those assets will have the proper classifications that I need or proper updates that I need as well. So the next topic we want to now showcase is that, well, we showed you that there was multiple classifications. That means in other areas, such as capital planning, we're going to start seeing that functionality too. So coming back into capital planning, we have the condition asset details. So when we go into a given project here, let's go ahead and search for one. Do I have one in this one here? And I have no data here, so that's great. What I'm going to do is purposely generate a brand new assessment. So I can do searches now, such as, let's search in a certain type of asset. I can specify any kind of details here, maybe by a classification code. So before I did that pop-up, so that was that selection kind of tool that lets me pick between the different classes I might have, between master format, uniformat, omni class, and such, so forth, whatever you are tracking. But I can also do a quick type in. So that will find me anything that starts matching, including if I did, for example, in uniformat, it's based on alphabetical numbers, alphabetical representation first. So that will do those kind of restrictions for me. So let's go ahead and do this search. You can certainly go ahead and find some other details. For example, what's going to be running out of life expectancy, or what's hitting that 0 to 5 kind of digit right now. And one might have a certain criticality or certain condition index. So I can do those kind of searches. Let's find out how many assets fit that category. So now that actually generated the 5 and did search within my entire system that has matched up. And I can further go ahead and update the details there. So these assets, for example, never had additional classifications. I can now certainly say, well, now I need to start associating omni class with it and give it the proper details. So here it might be something to do with some sort of kitchen unit or whatever the case is. And I'm actually just going to go ahead and click this one and go ahead and onward. So you'll have the ability to capture all that detail, and as well as a quick action. So we'll go ahead and say, all right, and one more quick piece here we're going to quickly show you is within the capital budgeting side, there is the ability for you to do additional functionality around your funding sources. So this is where you would have added in all your funds, whether they were grants, researches, gifts, basic details here that you wanted to track. Traditionally, you would have given it a start and end date and then a total fund amount. Now with version 24, what's nice is that you can now break that down by the different years. So if you wanted to allocate certain things to only a specific year, you can do that and basically make the changes as you need to as well. So we're moving on. We're going to show you some new and exciting things with building operations. There's actually a new report here called a building ops reports console. And what that is it's a very much an ad hoc report. So first off, we can go ahead and say, what's our x-axis? Or we're going to check something by a problem type. What kind of groupings do we want, perhaps? And I'm actually just making up some examples here so you can get an idea how you can quickly build out some ad hoc reports, perhaps by priority. And we'll go ahead and pick another access here. So if you're tracking your costs and you're tracking your hours, you'll be able to run these kind of searches and hit your show. So every time I do this, it's going to generate a ad hoc request. I can further do the more button and really break down what I need to see here, whether I'm restricting by years or certain buildings or locations or certain work teams. So I have a lot of things to do here, including, let's just show me things that were done on time, for example. And now I have a different report that's based on that information. I can also further see that information on a pie chart, for example, if I wanted to view it in a different way. And also expand that information. I can see those tickets that were part of that list there. So if I were to select multiple items, let's go ahead and just pick everything that was part of this particular location. And I can do some things here. First off, I need to export it to a doc or generate some floor plans with all those work requests, print the information, or if I want to open up the building ops console to do some further details with it. So as long as I had the ability to see this information, I can find all those tickets that I've run a search against and make additional changes and updates to them individually. So back here, I just want to showcase one more functionality here with this tool is you certainly have the ability to save your report. So if you're going to do this very often, you might want to save this as something you're going to be able to find again quickly and save it. So it means on my recent, I'll be able to find my report and run those kind of searches versus this one where if I'm also going to be doing this quite often, I might want to save it so I can quickly, as I make different changes, as I clear everything, cancel these out, I certainly have the ability to run different types of things here, run a different report, but be able to come back and find my original reports that I've been saving. So very, very powerful tool here. And as well, you have some additional search capabilities. So in your ability to search for work requests, you now have abilities to now search additional details regarding the request. For example, there were craftsperson comments you had to find specifically. You can do that kind of search. And I'm actually just going to test something here, something about a chair, and see what we can find here. So these are all the things that have something to do with chairs, and we're able to do quick searches that way. Next, we want to highlight things that are new with the PM Planner. So it's gone through a bit of an update. This planner is kind of a calendar view, giving us a brief overview of all our preventive maintenance tickets. Right now, the grouping is by the certain asset standards, and we certainly have ways to change the groupings if we wanted to do it by location or other requirements. So just so you're aware that this is a completely configurable piece here. And as we expand some of these, let's say our particular assets related to the air handling units, you can see how the graphical representation shows how many things have been done on time, how many things have been missed, and the highlights of letting us know, in this case, how many things were completed late even. So we get a good overview of this detail. So this is what's new here, is giving you these kind of statistics so you understand right away how you're performing and what things need immediate attention. Missed dates would represent things that, for example, you set your system to automatically generate work orders. And if you missed any, that you didn't actually get them completed on time, then that falls under missed. However, if you chose to make your Archibus system be something where you have to manually generate all your tickets, then this is also going to show you any of the ones where you didn't generate, and again, it's missed. So that's kind of what that does. And you have further ability to, first off, drill into the request itself. So I see the schedule. I can look into the details, edit that information. If I'm not meeting any of those dates, for example, I can certainly change things like the intervals and those kind of properties. And for things that have anything to do with the work request already, then we can also see the status behind them, all the tickets that were related. So let's go ahead and just quickly show you what that might look like for some other type of standard. For example, in this case, this is one that's constantly being missed. In this case, this sample here, it's not generating my tickets as it generates tickets based on me saying I need to generate tickets. So in that situation, you certainly have the ability to change the months and the weeks that the tickets are falling under. So in this case, if I'm always missing my tickets, I might have to move some, or I might change the schedule altogether so that from now on, they will be done over a different period. So basically what I did here was move it a different week. And you certainly have the ability to further lay on additional functionalities here, such as, well, in order for me to do this kind of work, it does have a cost factor to it, does have an hourly assumption of what I need for my trades group. So you'll be able to see as I, again, move this to another week. Now we've grouped all the costs to this particular week as well as those hours. So that's what Archibus is going to be very strongly being able to present to you. And there's actually a lot more tools here within this particular PM planner. We might have already presented those in a version 23.2 update. So if you wanted to get more information about this whole functionality here, be sure to poke your account manager with Horizon, and we'll be sure to give you a detailed demo related to preventive maintenance as well. So next thing here, we're going to start showing you the environmental and risk piece here. There's actually a new functionality, primarily in the mobile side of things. So pretty shortly here, I'm going to prepare a mobile demo on what we've got there for the compliance side of things. All right, so what you should be seeing is my iPad in this case. For those of you who might notice, I have a very cute animal in the back there called an axolotl. So what we're going to do here right now is open up our Archibus app. And this person is in charge of the compliance questionnaires and inspections. And what they will do is they can search for certain inspections. I can find out all the ones in this case, what their status is as well. Earlier, you saw some missed inspections. Now I have some overdues and some in progress. These inspections, there's a wizard for you to create the kind of questions you want to ask for them, and basically what kind of behaviors you want as well. So if you give a positive response, you might want to move on to the next question. But if you give a less than desirable response, you might want to prompt the surveyor for more details. So in this case, I might want them to take a picture. Let's take a picture of this piece of fluff here on the floor. And we might also go ahead and attach it. We can further describe it. This will now go into the inventory of details. So I can describe and say that is a block of dust. They are everywhere across the floor. Another thing here too is I could have typed that in as well. So a lot of quick functionality for those who have to do the surveys. And then if you continue onwards, I could also prompt someone to create a service request because it wasn't a very desirable result out of that survey. So you want something fixed right away. And in this case, we're going to go ahead and create a housekeeping request. This time, I guess I'll just type in the problem here. So it looks like we want someone to quickly deal with it. Remember, I have the option to use my microphone because that's all part of my mobile devices and handhelds, so I can quickly fill in that details along the way. Now on the right there, you see I have my existing request that I can certainly view and see the information behind those tickets that I've requested, see what kind of status they're in. I can certainly create a new request as well, so you'll have multiple requests to your survey. And then as you go along, you might have additional questions, which will have their own flow. They might have additional prompts for questions that you want to ask. And with that said, that's pretty much it for the mobile side of that. So we'll pause this. We'll come back momentarily. We'll come back to Archibus. So we can show you some additional functions here. All right, now that I've turned off my device, my mobile device, I can come back to this presentation now. And what we're going to show you is what's new with the extension side and the smart client side. So first, off with the extensions, I just want to point out for those of you who are always up to date with the AutoCAD and the Autodesk products that you use, the version 24 is up to date with using AutoCAD 2019 and all those other subsequent products listed here below. And we're also going to show you a new tool with the Revit. So I have here my Revit running Archibus. So there's the Archibus tab here. And there's a new function here called the Model Explorer. So what that is that especially when you're dealing with getting a lot of filled out information from your consultants, you might want to look at all those details that they've given you, all the assets, all their different levels and categorization. In this case, here's a categorization of all the assets they provided me. So I can double click on any one of these, find that asset on the drawing. And as well, the consultants, when they were designing the items, they have the opportunity to add a lot of properties, especially when they're dealing with Kobe. So what that means now is that all these details, when you have a Revit drawing associated to your Archibus, you'll actually be able to view that information. And you also additionally have the ability to add many Archibus attributes to your assets. So there's certain ones you really need people to definitely spot and see. You can certainly bring any of these properties over to your attributes in Archibus. Especially some of these might also have classifications to the asset as well. In this case, you've got an omni number as well. And we have the opportunity to say, well, you know what? I want to also, in addition, associate this asset to Archibus. So by the way, you have the opportunity to quickly catalog all assets that have an ID to them already. In this case, I'm actually dealing with one that has no ID. It was just a drawing basically of an asset. So I can go ahead and do the edit, start associating the equipment code to it. So in this case, this is a PC. We also have the traditional details here in Archibus. So here's all our equipment standards, and I can associate it to the right PC type and other details. So once we do that, the next pop-up is now we're going to start seeing our Archibus details along with all our other details of the given to us for our assets and our items. So another thing here is that you have the ability to further arrange what you need to see. For example, if I wanted to show me rooms or I wanted to just see furniture, and I can also change my groupings. Right now it's by the Revit category. So however, whoever made the drawing themselves had their way of grouping data, but I can certainly adjust the details as well. So if I wanted to find information based on just levels and views, I can do that. Or if I was down to the assets and I wanted to see by the Archibus assets, then these are all the assets that were associated to that. Okay, so I'm gonna come back to our main piece here. The next thing here with the smart client side, you do have in version 24 a way to load recent views. So especially if you're closing views and you forgot to save it, or you didn't really think you would need to ever visit that view again, you certainly have a way to have a recent view list here, and you can go back and find them again and see the details of what you've originally had in your last session. So with that said, we're going to come back here and also point out a few additional things. So one of the things we want to show you guys is that we want to point out there's Nexus coming and happening. So every year, if you're not too familiar with Nexus, what it is it's a conference held by Archibus and many different city locations. And this year I'm excited because it's all happening in New Orleans. It's a city of great food and music. The agenda is already posted online for all the activities and festivities happening at that time. So it's we're actually going to post some links at the end of this webinar so you know what to look for. So now it's also, by the way, it's happening in April 28th to May 1st, so be sure to reserve your spots and sign up and register. However, for those of you who may not have ever attended Nexus before, or you're always trying to look for some incentive to be able to go, remember, you should always promote that. Nexus is a great way internally for you to go and meet the community, go and find others that are doing Archibus, find out how they overcame challenges, and what kind of common goals you guys are also both dealing with, and the kind of how they tackle those situations. So basically, it's not just a matter of saying, well, I just want to go and find out things like, well, how do I turn on the system and how do I start using the product, for example. There's also strategy. So you might want to meet folks that have learned how to gain support internally within their organization, how they made Archibus a staple within the organization. So they are able to ask for things like, I just want to grow. I want to buy more applications. I want to turn on more parts of Archibus, and how they got full support within the organization being able to do that. And then how they're able to show that they're reaping the benefits and being able to add more and more to their product. So we're all facilities people here, by the way. So we actually can't succeed without technology. So you'll also be able to meet folks there that can show you how they've maximized their IT practice to achieve their objectives. A lot of folks here are now all interested in things like the digital workplace. They're also looking into technology because we're also trying to find out, well, how do I use things like my iPad? Oops, press a little button here. And how do we use our phones to better get us to take care of things within our world of things. And basically how they're also implementing things like sensors, connecting products together, using and reaping reports such as utilization for their to report up to their management. So not only do you get to spend time with these folks to share insights and exchange ideas, but you get to be inspired because they've already figured out how to succeed in areas where maybe you had vision to want to succeed there, or maybe it's something you hadn't explored, and they've basically given you the details of how they were able to get to that stage and that goal. Also, there's also the idea here you can become a presenter and share your story of how they've of success. Or you can certainly go ahead and come in and listen to folks that are presenting on their success stories. But when you get a chance to present, it does mean you're also having a chance to put your organization in front there on the spotlight. And there are some perks to go with that, by the way. So if you wanted to find out more, be sure to ask your account manager here at Horizon for more details. And also, there is the opportunity for you to be more known within the Archibus community, because they do give awards, by the way. There are, you could become a candidate for various categories. There's always a reward ceremony happening at the Archibus Nexus conference. So there are rewards such as categories for the user group leader for the year, or visionary of the year, distinguished users who are the important people in your organization and why they should be recognized. And if you're doing a lot of things such as energy and risk and environmental sustainability, there's some awards there too. So be sure to nominate some of your favorites and your fellow folks there. We're providing you the link at the end there to let you know how to get to that area. And there's training given by Archibus themselves. So if you're trying to be up to speed with new methods, new approaches, new tools, you'll certainly be able to do that. Those are the Archibus software engineers providing you the training. And of course, you get to interact with the other students in the course and find out who's sharing the same interest with you. So actually, I'm checking the time. I'm going a little overboard, so I am going to speed things up a little bit. The last thing here is that Archibus will often talk about their pipeline, their roadmap, and there's also a way for you to chat and talk to the folks at Archibus, their product managers, and folks like that. So you have a chance to influence what's going to happen in the future of Archibus and in the product if you need something there. And there's enough of you saying, yeah, we definitely need this new function. And lastly, it's a chance for you to mingle. So say hi to us. Horizon will be there. Say hi to your friends and folks there within the community. Archibus will also be sending out details closer to the date about our event night. There's also the Archibus Gala that's happening. So great place for you to network, enjoy great company and great food. So these are the links that I mentioned here for our homepage, Archibus, the horizonsolutions.com, and then there's the Archibus pieces for Nexus, for the awards, and also for you to start registering for Nexus itself. And we're just going to give a quick thank you for everyone for joining us today. So today's webinar is going to be, it is actually a little different in terms of our usual flow. So if you like what you see, be sure to give some comments. For those of you who are following our YouTube channel, be sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Also, Kelly is also there for you to contact, for you to ask for any questions and details. If you are not set up with an account manager at Horizon, Kelly will be able to point you in that right direction. And be sure you can also always reach your account manager at Horizon at any time to continue any kind of further dialogue. So with that, we just want to give you guys a that kind of thank you. Thanks for letting us have a chance to show you what's new and always supporting us to give you these kind of webinars. So with that, we'll look forward to seeing you at the next upcoming webinars about the essentials and professionals, for example, as one of them. Also see you guys at Nexus, and you guys have a great and wonderful day. All right, with that, bye-bye.